Warning: this video contains mostly nonsense.
Gerald Undone, prolific YouTuber with over 1 billion subscribers, heralded by many as the greatest reviewer of all time. Despite countless other offers, he built his way to the top of YouTube using only one recurring sponsor. But now, the most trusted man on the internet is going to review more than just technology. He's going to review the rest of the sponsors.
Let's get undone. Gerald Undone. He's crazy. What's happening, everybody? I'm Gerald Undone, and there's always money in the banana stand. So, as that humble opening segment suggested, in this series, I'm going to be reviewing the products and services from the brands that appear as sponsors over and over again in the YouTube videos that I watch. And I watch a lot of YouTube, so I have a long list of sponsors to work my way through. In today's episode, we're discussing Audible. Now, I chose Audible because it's a bit of a softball, which felt appropriate given that I'm testing out a new format for this series. And the point of this series isn't to dunk on any YouTubers that are sponsored by these brands, but instead to take a more objective look at the services those brands provide by me, a reviewer who doesn't actually care if you sign up for that service or not. So let's start by taking a look at what some YouTubers have to say when they're pitching Audible.
Just go to audible.com/legaleagle or text legaleagle to 500-500. I use Audible almost every day. It's by far the best source of audio entertainment on the internet. And if you tried to listen to everything on Audible, it would take you 3 centuries.
And you know we can trust him. After all, he is an eagle. But just to be safe, let's get a second opinion from a doctor.
www.audible.com/Dr. Mike, and you get your 30-day free trial, and you can read one of these bad boys by downloading your first audiobook. I even listen to audiobooks on the gym. All
right, so if I'm understanding this correctly, medically speaking, it's like reading, but instead of using your eyes, you use your ears. And hey, I can get behind that because sometimes when I'm using my eyes for other things, my ears have nothing to do, like when I'm driving, or cooking, or reading. Chapter 18, The Wind Makes Dust. Why should so many people find
Erebus, he was darkness.
I've tried to suggest some of the reasons. Its precision,
night.
its counterintuitive and disquieting aspects, its prospect of misuse. So obviously to test it out, I signed up for Audible. It costs me $15 per month for the premium service, which gets you the subscription-based library, but also lets you select one title a month that you can have for keeps, even if you cancel your membership. However, you can definitely cheat the system a little bit here if there's just one book you wanted, because they offered me a free trial for 30 days, so you can just sign up for that, get your one free book, then cancel before you start getting charged for real in month 2. I tested this, and it works. The first book I chose was The Anthropocene reviewed by John Green. And while I'm not here to review John Green's book, even if that would be cheekily ironic, I can say that it's instances like that specific audiobook where this platform truly shines. Being able to hear the writer deliver the words with the cadence and tone that was originally intended does elevate the experience. This is probably more true for nonfiction, and especially so when the work is as deeply personal as Anthropocene is to John. Overall, I love the book, and it was definitely worth the $15. I imagine that biographies narrated by the subject would also provide a similarly captivating experience, but the next book I tried was not a biography, but a hybrid nonfiction called Mythos by Stephen Fry. I chose this one because I like Greek mythology, and I'm a big fan of Mr. Fry's work, and most importantly, voice. As expected, I've been enjoying it, although I'm finding this one a bit harder to get through as it's over 5 hours longer than Anthropocene, and now that I'm roughly 2/3 of the way through, I'm feeling a bit overloaded with ancient Greek names and places. Not a criticism of the work, but just a reminder that audiobooks can be a commitment if you're someone who likes to finish things like I do. There's this interesting efficiency conundrum with audiobooks. When I'm reading a physical book, I can modulate the speed at which I read to hurry past the boring parts or slow down through the enjoyable sections, all while keeping a consistent head voice, by which I mean the voice your brain generates while you read, your internal narrator, which I would hope is your own voice, unless you do impressions of someone else in your head while you read. And if that's the case, I'm not sure if audiobooks are the solution to your problems or your worst nightmare. But what's good about Audible is that the app allows you to set the playback speed to solve the same modulation problem, but doing so becomes comically distracting in my opinion. I just got finished saying that there's something magical about hearing John Green speak passionately about his life. It doesn't have that same emotional impact when you slow him down to the point of sounding drunk, or speed him up until he sounds 5 cups of coffee and a dash of methamphetamine deep.
In exchange for good press, I realized I didn't want to write in code anymore. I moved to Chicago and worked as a typist for temp agencies until eventually landing a job doing data entry for Booklist Magazine, a bi-weekly book review journal.
So if it's an audiobook you're not liking, you can either quit reading, sacrificing your free credit for that month, force your way through it at the intended pace, or turn the book into a comedic farce at a faster speed. None of which sound like great ways to spend $15. However, the pricing isn't terrible when you look at the cost of similar works in the bookstore these days. Most of the books I'm interested in seem to retail for in and around $30. So even that one premium book a month from Audible seems like a decent deal, but that's not factoring in the dollar value of whatever enjoyment you might get from holding a physical copy. And there are studies that suggest that reading with your eyes is better for retention of information than just listening. But I believe there's also studies that show that multiple mediums beat any single one. So perhaps the best possible combination of enjoyment and retention would be to buy the physical copy of the book and follow along with the audiobook while listening to the author read their own words. We'll call it Follow Alongable. It costs $45 a book, but we promise to make it an experience you won't soon forget. I'm focusing mostly on those premium selections because, let's face it, if you heard about a certain title because it's trending, was discussed on a talk show or by a creator you follow in their sponsored read, it's most likely a premium book and won't come in the basic subscription. But admittedly, there are a bunch of classics in the regular library that you can work your way through if you want to increase the value of your monthly spend. But the real value of your Audible subscription comes from the badge collection. What is our fascination with achievements and gamifying everything? I'm sure Amazon had some Skynet AI thing determined that including these badges was a clever way to make people spend more money or time on the platform, enticing them to get those last couple badges they don't yet have. But I find it pretty comical, not just because they exist, but because of how arbitrary they are and how easy many of them are to obtain. For example, I have one here called Weekend Warrior. Hope your ears still work on Monday. You've listened for at least 5 hours total on a weekend. It's like, that's worth an achievement. And you can also brag about it. And keep in mind, I've only done 1 2/3 audiobooks. Next one, Collector. You've reached the highest level for at least 1 badge. Keep earning those gold badges. There's a badge for collecting badges. You got a badge, so now you get a badge for collecting a badge. High Noon. You've listened for at least 3 hours during lunchtime. That doesn't even make sense. Whose lunchtime is 3 hours long? Dabbler. Congrats on exploring so many great genres. You have eclectic tastes. You've listened to content in at least 2 genres. You have such eclectic taste. You've tried 2 genres. But I could see it kind of working if maybe you had all of them except for one and you're like, how do I get Social Butterfly? You gotta appreciate the rhyming though. If status updates are kind of your thing, you're well on your way to winning this bling. Bravo, Audible. Bravo. Anyway, let's wrap this up. Normally when I review technology, my main goal is to advocate for the consumer and make sure the manufacturers aren't lying about their offerings or getting too cute with their marketing. So if we apply that same approach to these Audible sponsorship reads, is there anything you should be significantly concerned with as a potential customer?
And expose you to the light of justice!
To be honest, not really. It's a monthly fee. You get 1 premium book each month and access to a bunch of old ones. You can unsubscribe quite easily if you don't like the books. The price isn't terrible. The service is what it says it is and what most of the YouTubers I've seen say it is. Really, it just comes down to whether you want to read with your ears or not. I'm the type of person that would rather spend my shorter commutes and creative activities listening to music, and I prefer to read in bed via a physical book as a way to wind down before sleepy time. That being said, longer drives and especially flights lend themselves particularly well to audiobooks in my experience, and although I'm going to discontinue my Audible subscription for now, I can totally see myself starting it back up for another 30 days if I have some traveling to do in that particular month. Now, before we go, no Gerald and Dunn review would be complete without performing some in-depth testing. And to that notion, my first instinct was to test the audiobooks in the obvious way, which is of course using cardinal gram meters. But it turns out they're all currently on loan to the Swiss, who are doing some interesting things with audiobooks in zero-G environments. So instead, I did some stress testing to see what kind of stamina these narrators have. To my surprise, even after 40 hours of continuous playback, John Green did not seem to tire or ask for water even once.
I didn't want to write anymore.
So read fatigue wasn't an issue in my testing. Lastly, I wanted to perform a spectral analysis on the sound captured from the playback of these audiobooks and check for any inconsistencies.
But instead, something I was selling, or at the very
This
least,
is very strange. And it's on all the audiobooks I've tested.
something I was selling.
What is that?
Bing, 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 bing.
What if we just zoom in, enhance, So as you can see, Audible is perfectly fine, not possessed by any interdimensional demons, and gets a final score of 4.5 hammers, making it officially too legit to quit.